Part 17. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 163. Yejing looked at the skeletons around him and swallowed his saliva. What should he say about this situation? In just a few breaths, large groups of skeletons suddenly appeared on the wasteland that was originally empty, as if they had been ambushed before, waiting for the entry of prey. These human-shaped skeletons have been buried in this wasteland for who knows how many years. At this time, the changes in the distance, the death gas column rising into the sky, and the pouring ash rain awakened them. What should I do? Gray was panicked and trembling all over his body. This was not like facing humans, and there was still room for communication, but this was all skeletons. How could they communicate? They couldn't understand it either. Yejing was not as scared as Gray. Because of his passive skills, he had no fear of these low-level creatures with no combat power. Anyway, they couldn't kill him. After stacking up the War God combo, one knife at a time, or even chopping a dozen with one knife, it was not a problem. Moreover, he has the superb physique on him, which greatly increases his endurance. He would not be afraid of thousands of free skeleton soldiers like this. Thinking of this, Yejing calmed down and said calmly, "Gray, go up and see how many there are. First understand the number, then see the situation." Gray pursed his pale lips, opened his wings and flew high in the sky. When he looked down, his face turned pale in an instant, cold sweat ran down, his brain was dizzy, and his body was unstable and fell directly. Bang! He fell heavily to the ground. Damn! How did you fall? Yejing quickly helped Gray up and checked if he was injured. Gray's eyes revealed fear, his whole body trembled, and he trembled. "It's over, it's all over, this time I'm really dead." "What's wrong? How many are there?" "A lot." Seeing that Gray was frightened and lost his soul, Yejing couldn't help but asked in his heart. "Millions," Gray murmured. "Oh, hundreds." That's it. Yejing thought it was hundreds of them, and he was relieved immediately. Later, he found something wrong, and a bad premonition surged in his heart. How many? "Millions. Millions." Yejing heard it clearly this time, and suddenly shouted, shaking Gray's shoulders repeatedly, "Brother, you are not kidding. Are you sure it's not hundreds of thousands but millions? What does millions mean? There are only 500,000 or 600,000 people in the whole Lonely City, and the number of skeleton soldiers here is 10 times more than that of the Lonely City. Impossible." Gray asked back, "What's the difference between hundreds of thousands and millions?" Yejing, "Haha, there is really no difference, they are all the kind that can't be killed." Yejing couldn't help but look around, and his heart was cold. He didn't think that he could kill 1,000,000 people by himself. Even if these skeleton soldiers stood for him to chop, he would be exhausted to death. And will these skeleton soldiers stand for him to chop? Of course not. A dense mass of skeleton soldiers, swaying and rolling with smoke and dust, rushed towards Yejing and the other two. There were no fancy moves, just simple ones. Rushing over, with a huge number, they could crush them to death. Yejing was shocked, and threw the long knife in his hand, and shouted at the same time, "You two be careful." No one answered. He turned around and looked around in confusion, but found that there was no one around, only him. Where are the people? He looked up at the sky, his face was dark, and he saw that Gray had already flown into the sky, away from the ground, and put himself in a safe place. He looked down at the ground again, and in the wasteland, a black shadow was quietly leaning on it, and Aizayakui also ran away. Yejing looked at the two people who escaped safely, and pondered slightly, "What should I do? Damn! They both ran away. I am the only one left." Yejing looked up at the sky and angrily said, "Are you still teammates?" Gray smiled awkwardly, "Sorry, brother, This time there is really no way, you be careful, I'll see if there is any breakthrough, you hold on. Gray's combat power is not strong, at best he can only be regarded as an air soldier, he can detect the enemy's situation, let him face hundreds of thousands or millions of enemies, don't run away and wait for death. And Ai Zyakui is the same, she is good at one-on-one assassination, the kind that will run away if she misses a shot, her endurance is not good, it is impossible to let her fight in a group. So, the two of them are useless, only Yejing is left to face it. Yejing also wants to run, but unfortunately, he has no skills to escape. He thought quickly, and he couldn't help but panic in his heart. He definitely couldn't fight. With hundreds of thousands of people, even a destiny supernatural person might be dragged to death. Not to mention him. See which direction is weak. I can break out there, Yejing roared towards the sky. He could only choose to break out, and didn't consider continuing to fight at all. Gray responded and flew higher. He looked down at the densely packed ground with no open space at all, and couldn't help but get goosebumps. Weak spot, weak spot. Got it? Gray looked around and finally fixed his eyes on the air column filled with the breath of death. Only on that side, near the death column, there was an empty space, as if there was some taboo, no skeleton soldiers approached, which seemed very strange and dangerous. But now, I can't care so much, can danger be more important than losing my life? Gray shouted at the ground, run to that gray column. There are no skeletons over there. Gray column. After a slight pause, Yejing looked at the gray column rising into the sky in the distance. After visual estimation, it was very good, about 10,000 meters away. May I ask, how many meters can I live? 10,000 meters. Yejing, who had been ashamed, was revived again. At least there was still a thought, right? It's better than being exhausted from chopping. When he heard that there were no skeletons on the death column, Yejing hadn't moved yet. Ai Zyakui, who turned into a black shadow, moved first, ignoring the skeletons on the ground, and rushed in that direction. Gray in the sky did the same. He shouted at Yejing and flew in that direction. After Gray flew away, Yejing suddenly remembered something and almost vomited blood in anger. Why don't you take me with you? There's no other way, run. Facing the skeleton soldiers, Yejing raised the long knife in his hand, leaned forward, and shot out. His top priority is not to kill monsters, but to run. Run to the death column. Killing monsters is hopeless. Only by surviving can you know what kind of energy exists in the secret realm of the dead. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 164. The world is crazy. Yejing thought to himself, running and slashing at one skeleton monster at a time. Any skeleton monster that stood in front of him would be chopped into pieces by him, faster than slashing a person. But he didn't feel the slightest sense of satisfaction, as if what he was cutting was not a monster but a sandbag. There was no sense of reality at all. No matter how much he cut, he still couldn't feel happy. His sister. Skeletons surged towards him like a tidal wave, and were thrown away by him like unrecyclable garbage. Then a dozen more skeletons flew towards him, but were thrown away by him again. Repeatedly, the resistance was extraordinary. After only running a few hundred meters, Yejing felt his arms sore. After all, his weapon was so good. Whether it was sharpness or weight, it was hugely different from other weapons. Far. The previous dragon tooth sword was fused with hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones, omega sublight, and a lot of miscellaneous things, and was successfully upgraded to the golden dragon slaying sword. And the weight of this golden dragon slaying knife also skyrocketed. It originally weighed only a few dozen kilograms, but it skyrocketed to more than 300 kilograms. Although this weight is very easy for practitioners to wield. But There is a difference between swinging once and swinging 100 times. Dancing with swords and sticks, the long sword weighing more than 300 kilograms was constantly swinging. Even Yejing, who was blessed with an extraordinary physique, felt tired. At this time, he couldn't help feeling regretful. Why didn't he put a spare weapon in the bracelet? Not to mention how good it is, at least it should be lighter. He originally liked group fighting, but suddenly he didn't like it anymore. There were too many enemies, which made him vomit. He secretly made up his mind that when he gets out of here, he must be an honest and safe salted fish. Waiting for college exams, no more messing around. While secretly cursing Gray, the white-eyed wolf, he tried his best to run towards the pillar of death. Time passed, and when he ran 1,000 meters, he suddenly felt a sense of danger in his heart, and the hair all over his body stood up, and it was terrifying. What? He felt a very powerful energy emerging from the right side of his body, swinging in his direction. Not good. Yejing was secretly shocked and subconsciously leaned over. The next second he leaned over, a thread of golden light suddenly appeared in his sight, clinging tightly to his chest and swinging toward the distance at an extremely fast speed. Wherever the very thin golden silk thread touched, any skeleton monster it touched was cut in half by it in an instant, and fell to the ground swaying. In the blink of an eye, the golden light threads rippled dozens of meters away, clearing a large area, and then dissipated. After dissipating, several black cracks appeared in the air, twisted and illusory. This is space being chopped up? So fierce? Yejing was sweating coldly. He looked at his chest and almost cut him. But when Yejing saw the broken space over there, he couldn't help but be slightly startled. Thinking back to the golden thread before, why did it look so familiar? He turned around and was shocked. More than 20 meters away from him, stood a familiar person with a vulgar face and a thin body. In his hand, he was holding a golden shovel with the same rich color as him, and he was panting. A waving motion. The space between the two of them was cleared. Yejing saw him, and he also saw Yejing. The two of them were startled at the same time, and then they were shocked. Zhao horizontal bar. Yejing. Why are you here? Why are you here? The two of them said in unison, and then they both took out their weapons and pointed them at each other, their expressions of vigilance changing into a fighting stance. However, before this posture could be maintained, the two of them were surrounded by skeleton monsters all over the sky. Before Yejing could react, he heard a wailing sound not far away, and a golden light swayed over again, frightening Yejing to retreat repeatedly. The speed of clearing the area was incredible. With a wave of his hand, an area was cleared. It's just that the price is a bit high, it's the lifespan of Zhao's horizontal bar. This is risking one's life to save one's life. After clearing the area, a piece of open space was left. Zhao was exhausted and breathed a sigh of relief. We are not in direct conflict, are we? There is no need to fight, right? Yejing thought for a while, nodded, and agreed, it's not necessary. The conflict between the two of them occurred on the fragments of a small planet. At that time, the two of them fought fiercely to compete for the Omega sublight. Then Zhao was beaten half to death on the horizontal bar. Not only did he fail to grab the Omega Ziguang, but Yejing also dismantled a bone dragon and caught nothing. But now that there is no conflict of interest, Yejing doesn't want to face a strong enemy. After all, there are hundreds of thousands of skeleton monsters around him. The blank area only lasted for a second before the two of them were surrounded by the sea of skeletons again. Yejing yelled at the other side, how about we just pretend we didn't see each other? Okay. Don't leave here, Zhao horizontal bar shouted from the air, and then he didn't know what sounded, and suddenly asked, I see you are running in one direction. Why is it safe over there? Point it to me. He wasn't stupid either. He only glanced at Yejing twice and guessed that Yejing was running away with a purpose instead of running into him like a headless fly. Yejing thought about it. As a fellow widow, he decided to point Zhao Dangang in a direction. Go south. There is an open space in the south. Thank you, big brother. After the two of them talked, Yejing ignored him and continued to run towards the death column, chopping the skeletons with a long knife, with golden light and lightning all the way. However, before he ran far, he felt a dangerous breath coming from behind him. He turned his body in fear and saw that Zhao Dangang had already run behind him without knowing when, holding a golden shovel, and was about to hit him. Are you crazy? Hundreds of thousands of skeleton monsters are still fighting each other, Yejing said angrily. And Zhao Dangang was even angrier than Yejing. You ran to the north and pointed to the south for me, and you still have the nerve to say that to me. If he hadn't jumped up and looked at Yejing cleverly, he would have been fooled. The north and the south are getting farther and farther away from the safe place. It's really insidious. Yejing smiled awkwardly, then said calmly, sorry, I can't tell north from south. He sighed inwardly. He almost got rid of a potential enemy without any effort. What a pity. At this point, Yejing didn't pretend to be friendly anymore, looked at Zhao Dangang for a few times, and said, don't you want to say goodbye? Don't follow me. Zhao Dangang sneered twice. How about you run to the south and I run to the north? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 165. Yejing was speechless. I'm not saying change direction, I'm saying don't follow me. He saw Zhao Dangang following him closely, and he put away the golden shovel in his hand and just followed him. He had worked hard to clear the road, but Zhao Dangang was given the advantage. Zhao Dangang sneered, is this road opened by your family? Why don't you let me go? As expected of someone in that line of work, so shameless. Yejing spat at him and ignored him. He sped up his pace and focused on clearing the road. He sneered in his heart, follow him, and you will be in trouble when you get there. Ai Zyakui and Gray were still waiting on the death column. When the time comes, they will surround him without saying a word and get a travel fee. Do you really think that I, Yejing, can be taken advantage of so easily? More than 10 minutes later. Yejing was sweating profusely, his arms were weak, his steps were weak, and his body fatigued. He couldn't help but yell at Zhao Dangang beside him. Can't you give me some strength? Zhao Dangang was almost foaming at the mouth, his clothes were torn and ripped, his body was bloody and injured. He only walked together for a few minutes before he stood with Yejing and cleared the way together. It was not because he had a change of heart, but because he was afraid that Yejing would not be able to hold on and die together. But he did not have Yejing's endurance. In just 10 minutes, he had consumed most of his physical strength and was exhausted like a fool. Impatient and tired, he was furious when he heard Yejing's accusation, how can I be so powerful? Do you think I am a pervert like you? Yejing retorted, where is the bone dragon? Don't hide it at this time, okay? Summon one. Dare to mention the bone dragon. It would be fine if he didn't mention the bone dragon. As soon as he mentioned the bone dragon, Zhao Dangang was furious, didn't you dismantle my bone dragon? The next one. You are rich and powerful in the gold-digging sect, and you have been passed down for 1,000 generations. How can you not have a few bone dragons? Zhao Dangang was furious, don't even think about it. The bone dragon is locked up and can't be summoned. He lost a bone dragon when he went out. After returning, the elders in the sect didn't care about his identity as a single heir for 1,000 generations. They directly deprived him of the right to summon the sect's pets and locked up the bone dragon and other pets. Now he has nothing in his hand except the golden shovel that consumes his life. And the culprit who caused him to look like this was Yejing dismantling his bone dragon. Tisk, it's useless. Yejing curled his lips. He was almost dying, otherwise he wouldn't have sought help from Zhao Danggong. He had never thought that a distance of 10,000 meters would be so far. Half an hour had passed, and he could hardly run for more than 2,000 meters. It was so uncomfortable. Yejing's knife flashed, and the aura surrounded him. The knife energy that spread for several meters suddenly chopped forward, clearing a small area, but before he could run 2 steps, it was filled up by the sea of skeletons again. If there were no other way, the 2 of them would probably really die here. His arms were so tired that veins were popping out. Yejing gritted his teeth and stopped swinging his knife. He turned his hand and placed the golden dragon slayer horizontally in front of his chest, half a meter away, and rushed forward. Abandoning perfect defense, he was ready to exchange injuries for progress. Originally, as long as the skeleton monsters were close to him, he would chop them to the ground without any injury, so he was unscathed. But now, it's not working at all, and he doesn't have the strength to defend. He placed his weapon across his chest, gave up part of his defense, and used his body to clear the way. Burn your boats. It feels pretty good. After running for a while, he knocked down all the skeletons in front of him. No, that can't be said. The skeletons in front of him were chopped by the golden dragon slaying sword across their chest before they hit him. It seems to be useful. Yejing's eyes lit up. This saved a lot of energy. However, he looked up and saw the death column in the distance. His heart sank. It was still too far away. It was too difficult to hold on. Why didn't Gray come to pick him up? Such a doubt flashed through his mind. Not only that, Ai Zyakui also disappeared. Logically, the 2 of them, one flying in the sky and the other hiding in the ground, should have reached their destination long ago. But why didn't anyone come to pick him up? No one would come to report the situation over there? This confused him and he couldn't help but worry. Could it be that he was entangled by something? It's not safe over there either? Forget it. Yejing shook his head. It was useless to think about these things. It was still uncertain whether he could make it to the other side. Thinking of this, Yejing was so angry that his teeth itched. He cursed at Zhao Danggong who was hiding behind him. Think of a way. If you continue like this, both of us will die. Zhao Danggong looked innocent. I can't do anything. Where is your golden shovel? That blow was quite powerful, wasn't it? Chop. If we chop once, won't we survive? Zhao Danggong looked embarrassed. The price is too high. I dare not use it under normal circumstances. General circumstances? Is it still a general situation now? Yejing was furious. He didn't care. He worked so hard, and there was a slacker behind him. What the hell? Without saying anything, Yejing took advantage of an opportunity, changed his shape, turned around and retreated behind Zhao Danggong, and pushed him to the front. Zhao Danggong. What are you doing? Yejing said unhappily, I'll take a break. From now on, we'll take turns. I can't survive by myself. We have to cooperate if we want to survive. But Zhao Danggong was stunned. He wanted to say something, but the skeleton monster blocked his way. Damn it! Zhao Danggong's face changed. He gritted his teeth and took out the golden shovel. He waved it forward. Under the shining golden light, the front dozens of meters were instantly cleared. This is all fate. The 2 of them took the time to speed up their pace and ran as many meters as they could. When the sea of skeletons filled up again, Zhao Danggong swung a blow with a dead face. His heart was bleeding. Every blow of the golden shovel would consume dozens of days of life. Even if the cultivator had a long life, He couldn't stand such consumption. Yejing, who was hiding behind Zhao Danggong, took the time to rest. Now he has been judged to be out of combat, triggering super physical fitness. His injuries and fatigue and soreness are recovering at a very fast speed. It won't be long before he will be back to a healthy state. 5 minutes later, Zhao Danggong said expressionlessly, "It's your turn, right?" 5 minutes, his lifespan was reduced by almost a year. Yejing did not delay, and after recovering almost, the strong man stood up again and burst out with all his strength. His endurance far exceeded Zhao Danggong's, and he drove more than 1,000 meters before Zhao Danggong came forward. After switching back and forth several times, Zhao Danggong's lifespan was greatly reduced. The distance of 10,000 meters was completed. The death gas column, here it is. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 166. Yejing originally didn't understand why Gray said it was safe here and why he said there was no sea of skeletons here. When he came here in person, he knew. In front of him, there was a great thin curtain that stretched straight up to the sky and had no edges to the left and right. This thin curtain divided the secret realm of the dead into two halves, one half outside the thin curtain and the other half inside the thin curtain. Outside the thin curtain, undead were everywhere, and a sea of skeletons crawled out of the ground, looking for the living. An empty open space could be vaguely seen within the thin curtain. There was nothing there, but it revealed a strange and dead atmosphere, which made Yejing feel afraid. Not only Yejing was a little afraid, it was obvious that the hundreds of thousands of skeleton soldiers were also very afraid of Bomu. They all moved away from Bomu, as if there was some terrifying existence, and they all walked around Bomu. Dare not approach. How weird. Yejing looked at the thin screen in front of him, his face suddenly darkening and gloomy. He stopped and did not dare to take another step forward. He was struggling in his heart. There is no doubt that human beings are afraid of unknown existences. To advance or not to advance, that is the question. Judging from the status of hundreds of thousands or millions of skeleton soldiers, we know that things are definitely not simple inside this thin curtain. Once inside, it may be more dangerous than outside. But what will happen if you don't go in? Yejing turned around and glanced at the endless sea of skeletons, feeling chilled in his heart. It seems that the only option is to go in. If you want to get out of the secret realm of the dead, you can only find an exit from within this thin curtain. In other places, besides skeleton soldiers, there are only skeleton soldiers. Moreover, he did not have the confidence to pass through a sea of skeletons. The most important thing is, he doesn't know the situation of Aizayakui and Gray. The two of them must have gone in first, and it is still unknown whether they are dead or alive. What are you thinking about? Let's go. Zhao Xingbang on the side saw Yejing standing there stunned, and couldn't help but urge him. His forehead was covered with sweat, and he was panting from exhaustion. He didn't want to face a sea of skeletons. Every attack would cost too much. Big. Yejing glanced at the anxious Zhao Xingbang and said calmly, "You go first. Just come in. You are so powerful, I really don't know what you are afraid of." Zhao Xingbang looked at Yejing with a look of disdain, then raised his steps and bumped into the thin curtain. The next second, he passed through the thin curtain and walked in. What am I afraid of? I'm afraid of sudden death. In this day and age, are there too many time travelers who suddenly die suddenly? If you really are the protagonist, you won't die. Yejing sighed secretly in his heart, gritted his teeth, and walked in. A little cold, a little spooky. This is what it feels like when he hits a thin curtain. When he walked into the thin curtain, in an instant, the complete gloominess disappeared and was replaced by high temperature and scorching heat. The heat revealed an irritable atmosphere and hit Yejing's nerves directly. What's going on? Yejing was stunned, Why was there such violent flames in the secret realm of the dead in Zion? Yin and Yang are obviously relative. After walking behind the thin curtain, the scene changed. From the ruins outside, it suddenly transformed into sandy land, filled with fine sand, soft and heat-absorbing at the same time. Outside the thin curtain are ruins, and inside the thin curtain is desert. Yejing was stunned and didn't understand what was going on. And when he set his sights in the direction of the death air pillar, his expression suddenly changed, and he jumped up, without hesitation, and ran directly towards that direction. The direction of the death air column. He saw Izayakoi and Gray. There is also the woman in red whom I met before. The three of them are all under the feet of the pillar of death. Zhao Xingbang saw Yejing's movements and after a slight pause, he followed suit. The closer he got to the pillar of death, the stronger the sense of crisis in Yejing's heart, as if there was something extremely terrifying inside. "How are you doing?" Yejing jumped over and shouted after Izayakoi and Gray. Izayakoi and Gray both turned around and couldn't help but be moved when they saw Yejing's figure. A trace of relaxation flashed in Izayakoi's eyes, while Gray looked excited. "Yejing, you're finally here, come here and help," Gray said excitedly, but in the next second, he saw Zhao horizontal bar behind Yejing, and he couldn't help but feel unsteady on his feet and almost fell down. Gray looked shocked. "Isn't this the tomb robber? Why is he here?" He and Izayakoi were very impressed with Zhao Xingban from the previous small planet fragments and recognized him at a glance. When Zhao Xiangbang heard about the tomb robbers, he immediately had a dark look on his face. "I am a Kyande single passer of the Nugget Gate, not a tomb robber." "Isn't gold digging just like tomb robbing?" Gray muttered in a low voice, but suddenly thought that now was not the time to talk about this, and an anxious look appeared on his face. "Forget it, you two come over and help, the boss is about to be resurrected." "Boss? What's the meaning?" Yejing's heart sank, and he walked to the pillar of death air in 3 or 2 steps. He looked inside the pillar of death air and was suddenly shocked. "I saw a person floating in the giant pillar with countless death auras flowing, a dead man covered in black and flesh and blood. It was a sturdy dark man about 3 meters tall, covered with purple armor, floating in the air, his eyes closed tightly, exuding a frightening aura of terror. Gray air flowed around his body, constantly pouring into his body. In his right hand, he tightly grasped a sharp black spear about 5 meters long, with a black light flashing at the tip of the spear, which was extremely cold. Under him, there was a 3 or 4 meter-sized skeleton horse floating, with a saddle on the horse's body, horseshoes on the horse's hooves, and blue flames burning on the horse's head. Not only that, what shocked Yejing the most was, above the heads of this man and horse, there was a sun hanging. No. It was an energy substance similar to the sun. It was an irregular circle from deep red to deep white, hanging high, emitting a hot breath and endless vitality. From around the irregular circle, red light continued to descend and slowly flowed into the body of the dark man. Gradually, the heartbeat of the dark man sounded. It seemed that he would be resurrected in the next second. "What the hell is this?" Yejing looked at the scene in front of him and said in shock. He saw Izayakoi and Gray, as well as the woman in red on the side, constantly attacking the death gas column with their hands, as if they wanted to break it. Gray said anxiously, "I'll explain it to you later. Come and help, break this air column, don't let the boss inside be resurrected." Yejing responded, rushed directly to Gray's side, drew out the golden dragon slayer, and chopped the death air column without saying a word. Bang! A muffled sound. The place where the death air column was attacked suddenly trembled, as if it had a physical body. But there was no damage. "Just got home, fortunately I was able to catch up with the update. Why are all of them passive skills?" Author, Buletin G. Bayet. Chapter 167. This death air column seemed to have a physical body and was extremely hard. After one blow, it trembled slightly after leaving a small area, but there was no change at all. Yejing also imitated Aizayakui and Gray, hitting one after another, not sure if he could break it. And Zhao Hanbang seemed to know the seriousness of the situation and couldn't care less. He directly wielded the golden shovel and slashed at the death air column. Of course, he only used the strength of the golden shovel. Taking advantage of this gap, Yejing kept moving his hands and asked, "What happened? How did you know that the thing inside was about to wake up?" Gray glanced at the woman in red who was about 10 meters away from them and said, "She said it all." Yejing was startled for a moment, then looked at the woman in red, and couldn't help but wonder, "Do you believe what she said? Are you afraid that the one released inside is her relative?" Gray shook his head and said decisively, "Definitely not. Because I have seen the boss inside, and it is exactly the same as the one described in the book." Yejing asked, "What?" Gray looked at the man covered in pitch black and wrapped in armor in the Pillar of Death, and he couldn't help but show fear in his eyes. "That's the undead knight who slaughtered an entire city by one man." Undead knight? This name is so fanciful. But it's quite vivid. After all, there is a horse. Gray said, "The undead knight is made of a huge amount of death energy. It is not a human body but a human body. Although I don't know why it condenses into a human form and why there is a horse, I have to say that the undead knight is very scary." 50 years ago, in a border town of Blue Star, an organization sacrificed 10,000 people to form an undead knight. They originally wanted to control the undead knight to achieve an ulterior purpose, but who would have thought that the undead knight he was born evil and ruthless, like an emotionless killing machine, and he was immediately destroyed by that organization. Then, Gray swallowed, fear evident on his face. The undead knight seems to be born specifically for killing. He has no memory, no emotions, no soul, only killing. And he is very strong. There is no enemy of Yaihe in that border town. The undead knight was born with peak destiny, and it is not something that ordinary people at the peak of destiny can deal with. In that border town, all the masters could not defeat it, and they were all killed. In the end, the undead knight slaughtered an entire city, more than 10 people. 10,000 people were killed. At the end, when it was still killing scattered citizens, the rescue sent by the Federation finally came. An extraordinary strong man took action and completely scattered the undead knight. At that time, that incident occupied Blue Star's headlines for several days. The undead knight also officially entered the eyes of people and the evil organization. In the year since then, evil organizations that don't know about life and death have constantly summoned undead knights to trouble Blue Star, causing the entire Blue Star to be in chaos. Finally, the three-disaster boss of the Federation said something, and then summoned the undead knights. The heat wave of the undead knight dissipated only after all the combos were found. I didn't expect that after decades, an undead knight would form on its own inside. When Gray thought of the images he saw on the news, he couldn't help but tremble all over. He couldn't stop attacking the death air column with his hands, saying that he couldn't revive the undead knight. Just like listening to a story, Yejing listened carefully the whole time and was stunned until the end. What's going on? Was he born at the peak of destiny? Only the super strong can deal with it? That. Yejing put her eyes inside the death air column and looked at the sleeping undead knight, and couldn't help but feel a tremor in her heart. Who can withstand this? Nothing can be said to bring it back to life. Peak of destiny realm. What to fight with? You can kill them all with one finger. When he thought of this, the movements of his hands sped up a lot for the safety of his life. There was nothing he could do to revive the undead knight. And Zhao Hanbang was also sweating all over his body after hearing this. An existence at the peak of the destiny realm, even its undead horse, could trample him to death with one kick. No. But you must not resurrect it? Zhao Xingbang wiped his cold sweat, and the golden shovel in his hand drew traces in the air, and struck the pillar of death air, leaving a faint grey mark, which disappeared in the blink of an eye. Are you sure this can be broken? There is another question. Yejing glanced at the little sun-like thing above the undead knight's head and asked, do you know what that is? That's the essence of the sun. An energy source worth as much as Omega Light. Before Gray could speak, Ai Zyakui spoke first. Unlike Gray, she directly ignored the undead knight and kept her eyes on the essence of the sun, with a deep look of greed in her eyes. Just get this. I will be debt-free. Ai Zyakui thought, this is the second time this encounter happened. The first time we encountered the Omega Ziguang, it was a pity that some bastard took it away. This is the second time I encountered the essence of the sun, which is not weaker than Omega Sublight. It is so close before my eyes, I can't let it go no matter what. What is the essence of the sun? Is it not weaker than Omega Light? Yejing was shocked. You must know that Omega Light is something outside the universe. It's priceless. Just such a thing is not weaker than Omega Sublight. When the treasure was mentioned, Ai Zyakui's face showed a slight change, and she explained to Yejing. Each planet has its own energy core, which is the most important part of the entire planet, the core of the core. And the sun essence is the core energy of the sun. Back then, the Omega beam shot into the sun and exploded half of the sun. Similarly, it also shattered half of the sun's essence and drifted into the universe. The fragments of the sun's essence also have a very huge energy. Although it is inferior to the Omega Sublight, its value cannot be ignored. The most important thing is that it can be absorbed by the most yang human beings. Ai Zyakui's slender hands held weapons, a short blade and a dagger, and they were crossed and waved on the death gas column. The yang body is a human variant. The most famous one is the Dean of the Magic City Academy. The reason why he was able to break through to the three disasters is because he absorbed the endless high-level energy contained in the essence of the sun, strengthened himself, and broke through the three disasters. And it was the Dean of the Magic City Academy who discovered the value of the essence of the sun, causing all the forces on the blue planet to cultivate yang humans and search for the essence of the sun on a large scale, hoping that their forces could also have a strong person in the three disasters. It was also at that time that the value of the already very rare sun essence soared, catching up with the Omega Sublight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 168. Sun Essence. Yang Energy. Energy comparable to Omega Sublight. These pieces of information kept flashing in Yejing's mind. His eyes looked at the crimson luminous body floating above the undead knight's head, which was as big as a basketball. He couldn't help but reveal the same look as Ai Zyakui, the ultimate greed. His mouth watered when he saw it. The core of the entire sun, the most important part of the entire sun, now has a small part under his nose. Can this not make him excited? Pity. In the blink of an eye, a look of pity appeared on his face. No matter how powerful he was, it didn't belong to him. It belonged to the big boss. That belongs to the undead knight whose destiny is his destiny. However, even so, Yejing still has some expectations in his heart. If the undead knight's recovery is interrupted and he falls into death again, wouldn't there be a chance? When he thought of this, Yejing felt that his whole body was full of strength, and the movements of his arms were getting faster and faster. His attacks struck the pillar of death, and every blow carried his expectations. But it was of no use. Not only him, but also the woman in red who was not on the same side as them had an angry look on her face, and her bloody claws flew in all directions without causing any harm to the death air column. The banging sound gradually sounded in everyone's ears. It was the sound of heartbeats. The increasingly active heartbeats were getting louder and louder. It is estimated that it will not be long before the undead knight who can sweep everyone away will truly revive. How about we run? Zhao Xingbang listened to the terrifying heartbeat echoing in his ears, his body couldn't stop trembling, and he suggested in a low voice. He heard Gray's description of the undead knight. What were those words? Slaughter the city, kill instantly, reach the peak of Destiny realm, extraordinary and invincible. Darling, there aren't enough of them to hit him with one shot. It's better to run first as a courtesy. Yejing glanced at him sideways. Have you forgotten that we just escaped from the Sea of Skeletons? Yes, Yejing felt very uncomfortable. He had just left the place of death, and then entered the place of death, which was even more terrifying. Zhao Xingbang shrank his neck. That's better than waiting to die here. This broken air pillar can't be beaten at all. I also know I can't fight. Wait. Before Yejing finished speaking, his eyes suddenly lit up, as if he saw hope, and he looked at Zhao's horizontal bar and the golden shovel in his hand. What do you want to do? Zhao Xingbang lowered his head following Yejing's gaze and looked at the shining golden shovel in his hand. He reacted instantly and immediately put his hands behind his back and looked at Yejing with a wary expression. I heard that your weapon can cut space. Moment. As soon as Yejing said this, several people immediately turned to look at Zhao Hanban. Unknown to them, the woman in red who was not with them was also the same. She was even more irritable and directly showed the blood blade and pointed at Zhao Hanban. This series of changes frightened Zhao Xingbang to turn pale, retreated repeatedly, and said in a trembling tone, What do you want to do? Hand it over. Gray's eyes were full of pity. A weapon that can cut space must be valuable, but now, brother, don't blame us, just hand it over. Gray was okay, he just moved his mouth, but Aizayakui was different, approaching Zhao directly step by step on the horizontal bar, and the same was true for Siu in red on the other side. An acquaintance and a stranger, but both women were very irritable. This is the secret treasure of our nugget sect that has been passed down for thousands of generations. If I lose it, the elders will beat me to death when I go back. Zhao Hanbang was about to cry but had no tears. He tightly protected the golden shovel with one hand, as if protecting his own son, and stepped back continuously, with a cry in his tone. It's useless. Gray walked in front of Zhao horizontal bar, sighed, patted Zhao horizontal bar's shoulder, stretched out his hand, and comforted, I handed it over in order to survive. But Zhao still wanted to struggle with the horizontal bar, and said bitterly, but using it will consume your life force. As soon as these words came out, the people who were still pressing forward step by step stopped immediately and looked at Zhao horizontal bar with strange expressions. You have been fighting with your lives. In awe. You don't want it anymore. Zhao Xingbang looked at everyone's actions and felt relieved. No more. Yejing shook his head and said. After a few people looked at each other and communicated, he pointed at the pillar of death air. Since the price is so high, you should do it yourself. Zhao horizontal bar. Do you think this is human language? Zhao Xingbang was stunned. He stared blankly at the people in front of him and pursed his lips. Are you all devils? He regrets very much now that he was not already trapped in the secret realm of the undead when it was opened. He walked in on his own later. He knew the secret realm of the undead, and subconsciously walked in out of respect for his profession and occupational disease. Then tragedy struck. Always tragic. Zhao Xingbang said blankly, does it have to be like this? Several people nodded in unison, dead Taoist friends and poor Taoists, they were not good people. Two choices, either die, or open the death air column. Zhao Xingbang burst into tears, do I still have a choice? Under the force, Zhao Hanban had no choice but to hold back the heartache, release the restrictions on the golden shovel, aimed at the pillar of death air, and drew a golden trace. He kept comforting himself in his heart, saying, "I don't mind, I don't mind. This bit of vitality will be replenished after the breakthrough, and I won't die for a while." A golden mark cut through the space and reached the pillar of death air. In the blink of an eye, huge fluctuations appeared from the death air pillar, shaking around, and the gray breath was floating. However, it only lasted a few seconds and returned to normal. Zhao horizontal bar, dot. Go on. What are you waiting for? Today's shame will be repaid in the future. Zhao horizontal bar gritted his teeth and waved his arms fiercely, as if he wanted to vent all the anger in his heart on the pillar of death air. With continuous swings, 3 golden marks appeared instantly and struck the pillar of death air. Boom boom boom. In an instant, deep cracks appeared where the death gas column was attacked, spreading to all directions, crumbling, but still not broken. Keep going. Don't stop. Several people on the side urged, almost making Zhao Xingbang curse, "It's not your vitality that we have lost. If I can get the essence of the sun, I will share a big portion." Zhao Xingbang roared angrily, gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and sent out 3 streaks of golden marks in succession, striking at the pillar of death air at the same time. Boom! The death air pillar withstood several attacks from Zhao horizontal bar, and powerful attacks capable of cutting through space bombarded the death air pillar again and again. In these last 3 consecutive attacks, it, which was already on the verge of collapse, finally couldn't hold on any longer. Broken. I'll say a bit more about the recent back orders. I'll use the sun essence later. This section will end soon. After that, I'll start the academy directly. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 169. At this moment, the pillar of death energy reaching the sky could not withstand the golden marks of Zhao horizontal bar. It was covered with huge cracks and shattered suddenly. The entire air column collapsed in an instant, and the endless gray death aura rose into the space and spread to the sky, lingering for a long time. Broken. When the barrier in front of them was shattered, everyone's eyes lit up and their hearts shook. This was the last barrier in front of them. Yejing and the others reacted quickly, but there were others who reacted faster than them. In the blink of an eye, a red afterimage passed directly across their sights. Siu, who was already ready to go, took the lead and rushed in. And her target is not the undead knight, but the essence of the sun. It's so fast. Yejing cursed secretly and followed closely. He didn't want such a precious thing to fall into the hands of outsiders. Whoosh whoosh. Ai Zyakui, who had been looking at the essence of the sun for a long time, shot 3 poison-quenched daggers at Siu quickly, stopping her. Siu felt the sound of breaking the air coming from her side, frowned, and had no choice but to stop. After just this pause, Yejing and others caught up and blocked him. Siu Xiu stretched out her hand, and when she turned her hand, blood filled the air. A huge blood blade 3 to 4 meters long suddenly appeared on her side, which was twice as serious as the one that attacked Yejing before. The bloody blade was aimed at Yejing and others. Siu was still exuding an icy cold air and her red hair was fluttering. She looked at a few people and said in a cold voice, "Get out of here. I just want to get back what belongs to me." She died 100 years ago, and now she is resurrected. The most fundamental reason is the endless vitality of the sun essence. When Gray heard this, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Beauty, if you say it's yours, then it's yours. I even said you're mine." Even if it was hers, they had no intention of letting go of such precious sun essence, not to mention the strength in numbers. Presumptuous. Siu snorted coldly, waved his hand, and the huge bloody blade slashed directly at Gray. "I'm older than your grandma." She is indeed an old witch. Gray hurriedly dodged behind Yejing. He was no match for his superior Siu, and only Yejing could fight her. Yejing had no choice but to stretch out his golden slaying dragon and slashed into the void. A golden sword energy then appeared and faced the bloody blade. When the blood blade left Yejing's head, Siu seemed to have expected this. His blood pupils flashed, and several rays of blood erupted, shooting directly into their brains. Damn! Another soul shock. Soul shock has a tangible attack and an invisible attack. If you are prepared, it is easy to dodge. The first time, Siu caught him off guard, but the second time, he wouldn't be caught so easily. Zyakui and Gray were seen dodging one after another, and the blood light passed directly past them. Damn it! Siu cursed in her heart. If it was in her heyday, she could easily suppress these three brats, but now, the head-on confrontation made her feel pressured, and she couldn't tell the winner for a while. At this moment, Yejing suddenly remembered something and turned around to look around. What's going on? One person missing? Where is Zhao's horizontal bar? He glanced around and saw that Zhao was already standing directly under the sun essence on the horizontal bar. He only had to jump up to get it. It turns out that when Yejing and Siu were fighting, Zhao Xingbang had quietly escaped from their sight and touched the vicinity of the sun essence. Yejing only remembered it at this time. They are not in the same group. Yejing, Gray, and Zyakui are in the same group, Siu is in the same group, and Zhao is on his own on the horizontal bar. Little thief! Yejing roared in a blink of an eye, and regardless of Siu's bloody blade, he directly pulled out his hand and ran towards the essence of the sun, hoping to pocket the essence of the sun before the undead knight woke up. Following Yejing's roar, several other people also saw Zhao's horizontal bar movements. They all cursed in a low voice, stopped their current movements, and ran towards the sun essence. Exposed. Zhao Hanbang's heart froze, but then he felt relieved. The plan was ready. As long as he got the essence of the sun, he could use the secret teleportation method of the Nugget Gate to stay away from here. Everything is according to plan. Zhao Hanban took a deep breath, jumped up with his legs, and with this jump, he used the dark spirit energy in his body to jump 10 meters. The mantis stalks the cicada while the oriole follows behind. Got it? Just when Zhao Xingbo looked proud, just when his fingers were about to touch the essence of the sun, an accident happened. Suddenly, an unparalleled and powerful force pressed directly on his body, making him unable to move forward at all. The sudden appearance of huge coercion startled Zhao Xingbar, and he subconsciously looked down. Then I saw the devil. At some point, the undead knight who had closed his eyes quietly opened his eyes. It was a pair of dark pupils full of rage and killing, and he looked up at Zhao Xingban. The two looked at each other. Zhao broke out in a cold sweat on the horizontal bar in an instant. Sweat soaked his whole body. His warm hands and feet were directly cold, and his heart was beating hard. He looked at the undead knight's emotionless and violent eyes, swallowed, forced a smile on his face, and said in a zen way, "Brother, I don't want it anymore, please." His answer was a shot. The undead knight's black hand trembled, and then the gun came out like a dragon. A casual shot, an ordinary shot, had a force of 10,000 kilograms, stabbing Zhao Dangong's chest. Zhao Danggong was shocked, his face was pale, and he subconsciously blocked his chest with the golden shovel. Then he felt as if a mountain had hit his body, and a mouthful of blood gushed out instantly. The whole person flew out directly, drew an arc in the air, and fell heavily dozens of meters away, unconscious. Before he fainted, he only had one thought in his mind. It was the same fainting method again. At this time, the people who were originally running towards the sun essence stopped in an instant, looking at the undead knight who was like a god of war with fear. He woke up. The undead knight held a spear, and his violent eyes swept everyone, and the powerful pressure pressed towards them like a tide. Invincible. The pressure emanating from the undead knight made everyone breathless, and a sense of despair arose spontaneously. This was not an existence that they could deal with. Run. In an instant, Yejing made a decision, and yelled directly, turning his body violently, using all his strength, turning around and running. The afterimage flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he was 10 meters away. At this time, his mind was no longer on the essence of the sun now, his life was the most important thing. The undead knight was invincible. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 170. They were not clear about the actual combat power of the undead knight, and they only stayed at Gray's description. However, when they saw that the undead knight shot Zhao Danggong dozens of meters away and made him unconscious on the ground, they knew it. This is a humming big boss. What are you waiting for? Run. When the undead knight was not awake yet, they could pay attention to the sun essence, but now that he has awakened, they have no chance. Now it is important to save their lives. Among the three people of Yejing, running away has always been Yejing's weakness, which has always made him uncomfortable. At the moment when the undead knight took action, Ai Zyakui seemed to be prepared. He flashed and turned into a black shadow, escaped into the ground, and flew away. Gray spread his wings and flew into the sky. He didn't fly far, but went straight up, flying higher and higher. Looking at the two people who moved so quickly, Yejing couldn't help cursing in his heart, why didn't he draw the escape skill? He always wanted to ask where Ai Zyakui learned the secret skill of shadow escape. It was really practical. Whether it was assassination or escape, one skill was better than 100 skills. Unfortunately, this secret skill, which was obviously an active skill, had nothing to do with him. He always wanted to ask Gray how to grow a pair of wings, but it was impossible to think about it. Physical mutation was not something that could be mutated casually. Yejing was different from the two of them. He could only turn around and run desperately, hoping that the undead knight would not notice him. The three of them scattered and fled in different directions, but could they run? The undead knight stepped on the ground with both feet and stomped hard. The ground instantly cracked. A black breath caught up with Ai Zyakui's shadow along the crack at a speed invisible to the naked eye and hit him directly. In an instant, Ai Zyakui heard a painful scream from a distance. The shadow dissipated directly and turned into a human figure again. He fell to the ground, with his chest pressed on the ground, his face painful, and a trace of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. The method was broken. With just one stomp of his foot, Ai Zyakui's proud secret technique was broken. At the same time, the undead knight didn't even look at Ai Zyakui. He raised his head, and his eyes full of murderous color looked at Gray, who was desperately flying up. He raised the 3 or 4 meter long black spear in his hand slightly and pointed it directly at Gray. Boom! A shot in the air. The extremely powerful spear force cut through the void, and the invisible force rushed towards Gray. In the blink of an eye, it hit Gray's unprepared back. Puff! Gray seemed to feel like a mountain hit his back, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. His internal organs seemed to be displaced, his body was unstable, his wings were sluggish, and he fell directly, hitting the ground heavily. After struggling for several times, he didn't move. A stomp of his foot. A shot. In an instant, Ai Zyakui and Gray were directly disabled. Whether they escaped into the ground or flew into the air, it was useless. With a casual strike, they were the king. Explosion. Seeing this scene, Yejing's eyes widened, his mind trembled, a chill came over him, and he kicked his legs hard, running away like a desperate person, without any resistance in his heart. Who can withstand this? This is not at the same level at all. Yejing wished he could grow 2 more legs so that he could run faster. But no matter how fast he ran, could he be faster than the gunpowder of the undead knight? In just a few seconds, Yejing had run 100 meters away, and the distance between the two sides was still increasing. However, the undead knight only glanced at Aizayakui and Gray lying on the ground and stopped paying attention to them, as if he had killed two ants casually. Then, his eyes fell on Yejing, and a trace of mockery seemed to flash across his emotionless dark eyes. He saw that he took out his black gun and pointed it directly at Yejing. His thick arms shook lightly, and a black force wrapped in the meaning of destruction and death jumped out and shot directly at Yejing's back. Yejing felt the horrible breath coming from behind him, and his hair stood up instantly, his heart beat violently, his nerves tensed, and his whole body seemed to be bitten by a ferocious beast, and he was horrified. A fatal blow. There was no way to run away. Yejing gritted his teeth, stopped his feet, stopped his steps, turned around suddenly, and held the golden dragon slayer with both hands. He could only choose to resist this blow. In an instant, when the black gun force cut through the space and was about to reach Yejing, he suddenly remembered what Zhao Danggong looked like before. Zhao Danggong subconsciously used the golden shovel to block his chest. Although it could relieve the force and not kill him, his body could not withstand the impact and flew backwards for dozens of meters. He didn't want to repeat the same mistake. Yejing's brain was running rapidly, and in 1/1000th of a second, he made another decision. Aiming at the black gun force, he directly threw the golden dragon slayer in his hand. This is a contest between VIP players and powerful players. The golden dragon slaying sword spun rapidly in the air for several circles, leaving golden traces, and collided with the black spear force of the undead knight. Boom! The golden light and the black breath intertwined. As the two faced each other, an incomparable strong impact force was generated, and shock waves were like a boulder hitting a deep lake, sweeping around. Yejing was very close to the energy impact point. Before he could react, the strong shock wave hit his body, flying him several meters away and smashing him to the ground. Ahem! Yejing coughed twice, and felt a dull pain in his chest, but he had no time to check his own injuries. He didn't have time to think about it, so he turned over and stood up, waved his hand in the air, and shouted, "Come on, knife!" As the voice passed, the golden dragon slayer that was originally blown away seemed to have heard the call of its master. A golden light flashed in the air and fell into Yejing's hands safely. Yejing looked at the golden knife and found that there was no trace left. He couldn't help but smile. Sure enough, hundreds of thousands of spirit stones and omega sublight are not covered in vain. Such hardness, how can it be broken by a casual shot of gunpowder? In this way, Yejing had a little other thought in his heart, but it dissipated immediately. It's better not to have such absurd thoughts. He hesitated for only a second, then turned around and ran away. Now it's important to save his life first. However, when he ran dozens of meters, he didn't feel the pursuit of the undead knight, which made him puzzled and turned his head to look. You don't know until you see it, and you'll be shocked when you see it. Behind him, the red-dressed woman who didn't belong to his side, had touched the sun essence without knowing when, and had already touched the sun essence with her hand. Not only that, there was a hand on the surface of the sun essence, and Zhao Danggong, who was unconscious, woke up without knowing when. Two cunning people, when the undead knight attacked Yejing and others, quietly touched the sun essence. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 171. Fishing in troubled waters, cunning as a fox, these two words are best used to describe Zhao Hanbang. After all, he had learned about Zhao Hanbang's ability to stir up trouble when he was on the asteroid fragments. But he didn't expect that such a charming and alluring woman in red could be so shameless. When Yejing and the others attracted the undead knight's attention, and when they were being beaten, those two people actually reaped the benefits. and it's about to succeed. This made Yejing bubbling with anger and gnashing his teeth. The essence of the sun seemed to be very important to the undead knight. When he realized that someone was trying to take it away, he turned around and let Yejing go. The black phantom flashed past, holding up the black gun, heading straight towards Xiaoban and Si. The moon is gone. The undead knight pressed towards the two people with boundless power. He was very fast and arrived in the blink of an eye. When the pressure came, Zhao Hanban and Siu's hands had already touched the body of the sun essence. Before the undead knight could make a move, Zhao Hanban's face suddenly changed, and he was muttering words quickly in his mouth. A purple formation instantly lit up and enveloped him. In an instant, the undead knight's black gun had just smashed down. The purple six-pointed star formation flashed with dazzling light, and then Zhao Xingbar, together with Siu in red and the essence of the sun, disappeared directly in front of everyone's eyes. Moved. This is their Nugget Gate secret teleportation technique. This was also the second time Yejing saw such a roguelike secret skill, and he felt extremely envious. However, this very fast teleportation secret technique also has a big disadvantage, that is, the teleportation distance will not be too far. Yejing stood there, sensed it, and then turned to look to the south. The hot breath of the sun essence was extremely clear. The distance is only a few kilometers. He can sense it, and so can the undead knight. The undead knight's godless eyes only froze for a second, and then he looked towards the south. Black aura continued to emerge from his body, shrouding him, and then his burly body turned into a black lightning, galloping towards the south. Go and disappear from Yejing's eyes in the blink of an eye. Call. The moment the undead knight left, Yejing Chang breathed a sigh of relief. His back was soaked in cold sweat and his clothes were soaked. He stood there for a while and then remembered that Aizayakui and Gray were still lying on the ground, and hurriedly ran over to check on their condition. Without any hesitation, he first knelt down next to Aizayakui and shook it slightly. Aizayakui opened her eyes and looked at him confusedly. Yejing asked, "How are you doing? Is it a big problem?" Aizayakui finally realized at this time that her secret skill was broken by the undead knight, and she couldn't help but a flash of horror in her eyes. This was the first time that her secret skill was broken. Is this the difference in strength? She shook her head and said in a hoarse voice, "Where is the sun essence? Were you beaten, stupid? Are you still thinking about the sun essence at this time?" Yejing was speechless. Seeing that she was fine, he gently placed Aizayakui on the ground and went to Gray's place not far away. For men, Yejing was not so gentle, and instead of squatting down, he directly kicked Gray with his feet. Hey, are you dead? Say something if you're not dead. Ahem. Don't kick. It hurts. When Yejing came over, Gray had already opened his eyes, coughed twice, and looked at Yejing with a black line on his face. It turns out that I have been pretending to be dizzy. Yejing had a dark look on his face. Can you still stand up? Gray lay on the ground with a lifeless look on his face. Why am I still standing up? Are you shooting people down like shooting birds? If I don't stand anymore, just let me lie down. He doesn't want to get up. It flew hundreds of meters high and was knocked down with a casual blow. It was so uncomfortable. What a waste. Yejing couldn't help but give Gray a look of contempt, and then asked, "Do you know how to escape from the secret realm of the dead? Why don't you take Aizayakui out first?" Upon hearing this, Gray pointed in one direction. Did you see that there is a black door somewhere? This is the center of the secret realm of the undead. After passing through that door, you will reach the outside world. After finishing speaking, Gray was stunned for a moment, and suddenly looked at Yejing with a surprised look on his face. You let us leave first, what about you? Yejing chuckled, I want to take a look. The feeling of being fished in troubled waters is not that good. The people on your side have been defeated, but things have been taken away. It feels quite unpleasant. He also wanted to try the feeling of a mantis stalking a cicada and an oriole following behind. The sorrow of war on him has not yet entered the cooling stage and can withstand a fatal injury, which can greatly enhance his vitality. Moreover, he has already thought that if it comes to a last resort, he will touch the essence of the sun at all costs, and then detonate its energy, or even self-destruct. He has done this kind of thing many times and is familiar with it. He doesn't have to worry about the difficulty of detonating the sun's essence. After all, such a high-level and dense energy source cannot withstand a strong impact. Maybe he can chop it and explode it with one knife. When the time comes, haha, it depends on who has stronger vitality. It was precisely because he had a plan that he didn't want to return empty-handed, so he decided to go there and give it a try. Yejing said, "You'd better take Izayakui out and inform the Federation by the way. After all, this undead knight generally cannot be dealt with. Once released, it will cause heavy casualties." He didn't know the situation outside. The moment the secret realm of the dead appeared, the Federation sent people there, but everything happened too fast and they hadn't arrived yet. Gray thought for a moment and nodded, "I know. Be careful." Yejing waved at him and ran towards the south. He was more concerned about the essence of the sun than others. When he just entered the secret realm of the dead, the furnace was calling. The furnace wanted to eat. Yejing could vaguely feel that as long as he ate the essence of the sun, the furnace would not evolve, but it would still be able to upgrade a level. His furnace has not been upgraded for a long time. It was a distance of several thousand meters. Fortunately, the skeleton sea was in the north and there was no skeleton sea here. Otherwise, he would not know how to get there. His speed was many times slower than that of the undead knight. When he arrived nearby and lurked, the undead knight had already fought with someone. When he looked over, his eyes suddenly widened, as if he had seen an incredible scene. A few hundred meters away from him, the undead knight was fighting with Siu in red. The two were evenly matched, which made Yejing exclaim that it was impossible. This woman is so powerful? Why didn't I see it before? Then the next second, his face relaxed. He saw Siu in red controlling a huge blood blade that was 5 or 6 meters long with one hand, holding up the essence of the sun with the other hand, constantly absorbing the energy from it, fighting against the undead knight. It turned out that she relied on the energy of the essence of the sun. "Please don't raise it. It's killing me. Why are all of them passive skills?" Author, Buletin G. Bayet. Chapter 172. Yejing didn't know what the sun essence was used for. He only knew that it was the core of the sun, and it was an energy source second only to the Omega light. Apart from that, he didn't know anything. Not to mention using it, he might even have to be very careful to touch it, for fear of being burned. And he didn't expect that when the sun essence came into Siu's hands, it could actually absorb energy for improvement. Yejing didn't know that Siu was a person who walked out of the undead secret realm, nor did he know that her original strength was above the fate realm, but she was just seriously injured. He only knew that before this, the two of them were evenly matched, and in the blink of an eye, Siu could fight against the undead knight. What does this mean? This means that the energy contained in the sun essence is very terrifying. It can greatly increase a person's strength several times. This shocked Yejing. Now, except for the undead knight, who can control Siu who holds the sun essence. I'd better be honest and slack off. Yejing muttered in his heart, quietly lying on a ruined building, looking at the front of the battlefield, waiting for the opportunity. Although his body was motionless, his breathing continued. If he triggered the invisible wings and entered the state of spiritual energy consumption, it would be bad. However, his eyes also looked at the front not far away, and his eyes twitched slightly, and he almost laughed out loud. More than 20 meters away from where Siu and the undead knight were confronting each other, Zhao Danggong, who had activated the teleportation secret technique, had already fainted, lying on the ground with wounds all over his body, unconscious. Is this person here to make fun of me? He was as fierce as a tiger, but he was weak. After trying so hard, he still didn't have enough strength and fell to the ground directly. When Yejing was 100 meters away, Siu held the sun essence as big as a basketball in one hand, frowned, and turned her sleeves. Endless blood and energy gushed out from her body, filling the air, and instantly turned into hundreds of blood and energy arrow rain, magnificent. This is completely different from the battle with Yejing. Siu Xiu stretched out her hand and pointed at the undead knight. A hint of coldness flashed in her red eyes. She shouted coldly, "Go." As soon as the order came out, countless soldiers seemed to be behind the blood arrows, shooting them out and pointing them directly at the undead knight. There was no emotion in the eyes of the undead knight, just like a killing machine, with an expressionless face, and the black gun in his hand stabbed forward. Kaka. An extremely subtle sound of space breaking sounded. The moment the black gun stabbed out, a series of black waves surged out, covering the blood arrows in the sky. Swish. In the blink of an eye, the black waves rolled up with an invincible meaning, and the mighty power was vast. All the blood arrows touched by the black waves exploded directly, and there was no chance to enter the undead knight's body. Damn it! Siu bit her red lips lightly, and a solemn look appeared on her beautiful face. After just one encounter, she knew that she was no match for the undead knight and was in danger. Sure enough, after the undead knight fired a shot, he didn't pause at all. His burly body turned into a black shadow, rolling up dust and hurricanes, and rushed to Siu in a breath. Then, one shot breaks all laws. The undead knight's spear was as powerful as mountains and seas, and he stabbed at Siu. The power of the shot made Siu shudder, her pupils shrank sharply, and a strong sense of crisis surged in her heart. Close combat? She is not good at close combat. If it is at a distance, she may be able to deal with the undead knight for a while, but if it is close, I am afraid that she will collapse at a glance. Must keep a distance. Siu secretly made up her mind, her pupils flashed, her red lips moved slightly, and after silently chanting a few times, the aura like a sea of blood burst out from her body and attacked the undead knight. The undead knight seemed not to feel it, and did not dodge or evade. He held the black spear straight, and his whole body was covered by the sea of blood. Taking advantage of this gap, Siu tapped the ground with her jade feet, and the whole person jumped backwards like a fairy, jumping more than 10 meters away, and still increasing the distance. For the undead knight, a distance of more than 10 meters is not a distance. How long can it block? While retreating, Siu did not forget to focus on the blood sea. When she saw it, her red pupils shrank sharply. Not even a second of blocking. In the meantime, a sharp black gun head came out from the surface of the blood sea and directly pierced the blood sea. The undead knight broke through the spiritual blood sea without any injury. His figure flashed, and before Siu could react, he came in front of her and stabbed at her abdomen. Damn it! Siu was horrified and could not dodge. She gritted her teeth and moved the sun essence she was holding in her hand to her chest, trying to help herself resist this attack. She was gambling. She bet that the undead knight could sense the terrifying energy contained in the sun essence. If this attack hit, it would shatter the sun essence. Then they will all die. The core of the sun, the energy supply of the sun, although only a little bit, but if it really explodes, it may be able to raise the entire secret realm of the undead to the ground. She and the undead knight will not be spared. The next second, a hint of joy flashed in Siu's eyes. The bet was right. When the black gun wrapped in the breath of death was only an inch away from the essence of the sun, the undead knight stopped. he withdrew the attack abruptly. Huh. Siu breathed a sigh of relief, cold sweat pouring down. Although she relied on the energy provided by the essence of the sun to double her strength, she was still far from the undead knight, a boss who was born at the peak of the destiny realm, and she was unmatched. I saw the undead knight pointing his black gun at Siu, with a pair of emotionless cold eyes exuding cruelty and bloodthirsty. Suddenly, his lips moved, and a hoarse and unpleasant voice sounded from his mouth. "Give it to me and let you go." This is his will speaking. Siu's beautiful eyes stared fiercely, as if she was shocked. Can undead creatures like the undead knight speak? But this was not the time to think about this. Siu hesitated in her heart. At this point, she already knew that her resurrection from decades ago must be related to the essence of the sun. She was very reluctant to let go. If she gets the essence of the sun, her injuries will recover immediately, and her cultivation will even improve to the next level. But Siu looked at the expressionless undead knight and asked tentatively, "Half for one person?" She thought about it. The sun essence can also be divided, and she can take a little and calculate a little. But the undead knight was not happy. On the body of the undead knight, the aura of death shot straight into the sky, and the black breath filled the sky. "I want all of it." Bah! Siu was not a good person either. Her eyes widened fiercely, and a bloody aura appeared in her hand, standing 3 inches above the essence of the sun. "If I want half, I'll take half. If you don't give it to me, I'll blow up the sun's essence and everyone will die together. You've just been resurrected and don't want to just sleep, right? The beauty is full of strength. Beauty is like a tiger.